Thank you to everyone joining us today from across the country and around the world. I'm Melissa Doolin-Koehne. I'm VP of Development here at Conscious Capitalism. And on behalf of the entire CCI team, we so appreciate you taking the time to learn and grow in our community with us. Today, we are joined by an incredible leader, Jim Weber, CEO of Brooks Running Company. We'll be in conversation with Jim about how leading with purpose helped his company outpace the competition and build a trusted brand. As many of you know, conscious capitalism is a philosophy that emphasizes human nature of business, as well as a movement of business leaders around the world working to change the practice and perception of capitalism as a means to elevate humanity. Conscious Capitalism is a nonprofit organization dedicated to catalyzing the movement by creating learning opportunities like today's session and building systems of support for practicing conscious capitalism through our Senior Leader Network membership. Several times a month, we are offering these virtual gatherings as a way for our community to see how this philosophy takes shape in leadership journeys and the business practices of those in our network. About today's gathering will run for about 45 minutes, and Jim and I will be in conversation for about 30 minutes. And then we'll transition to audience questions during the last 10 to 15 minutes of our session. So please make sure you're using the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen, and we'll try to get to as many questions as we can during our time together. If you have any technical questions or issues, please email us at info@consciouscapitalism.org. So now it's my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Jim Weber, the CEO of Brooks Running Company. Jim is accredited for the Seattle-based running company's aggressive turnaround story, and we're so excited to hear more about you, your conscious leadership journey, and your new book, which I have read and love so much, Running with Purpose, How Brooks Outpaced Goliath Competitors to Lead the Pack. Jim, thanks again for being here today with us.
Thanks for having me, Melissa, and a virtual hello to everybody. It's great to be with you today.
Yeah, thank you. So reading your book, and I just told you right before we ended, it's like you are clearly a conscious capitalist. And I loved reading this in your journey through building Brooks, but also your journey in life. It's so funny. We're already seeing comments. I love my Brooks running shoes. So you clearly have a huge fanfare, and there's reasons for that. So we'll dig into that today. So let's start off with kind of what made you you? What got you to Brooks, and what kind of leader are you today?
Well, that's a big question, but let me just try to give a quick overview of the journey that I've been on. And I had an interesting childhood. We all did. I think every family could write a book, but I really got focused and motivated to be successful at something. And I started with hockey, but my skills went so far, and I had mentors in my world that I watched from afar that were successful business people. And I thought, you know what, that looks interesting. I want to be in leadership. I want to run a business. So I just started on a leadership journey and did B school, undergrad, thought I needed an MBA, started out in banking, and then got an MBA, and I landed a job at Pillsbury where you were an analyst at corporate, doing M&A work, and I was doing strategy work for the CEO. But then you went on in to be part of a business, and that's what I wanted. So I learned marketing in their foods group, and I actually followed an executive, spent some of my career with the Coleman Company, ran a division at a very young age. I became president of a company at age 30, a division of Coleman. I went on to run O'Brien Water Sports, so I sort of became a sporting goods person. They sold that. I went on to run a snowboard company, Sim Sports, which also got sold. There's a pattern here. And Brooks, I came to in 2001, and it was the fourth business I would run as president in 11 years. And I saw the opportunity. I loved running. I'd become a runner. I've run 3 to 5 days a week since I was 20 years old, basically. And so by the time I got to Brooks, I was ready to sort of lock in and hopefully be part of a team that could build a brand. So I have had mostly consumer products, I would say, but a lot of turnarounds, a lot of consumer brand repositioning work.
Yeah, it's definitely clear in the book that it's where passion meets purpose is where it brought you to Brooks. I loved in the book too, you were talking about that all those experiences, you really became very good at turning around brands, right? You were an expert in turnaround brands, but you never really had this opportunity to build a brand until you came to Brooks, right?
That's exactly right. And I grew up in business in the 80s, and this was the time for General Electric's Jack Welch. They called him Neutron Jack because cost cutting was generating a lot of value at that time, and there was a lot of restructuring going on in businesses. Another iconic CEO in the 80s was Al Dunlop. They called him Chainsaw Al Dunlop of the Sunbeam Company. And I saw that at Pillsbury. There was a lot of short-term quarterly delivery of numbers to Wall Street, and they actually underinvested in the businesses, and they ultimately were sold. Pillsbury was taken over in a classic sort of unfriendly 1980s deal. So that never left me, in that I just felt it was almost on the verge of immoral to manage the business for the short term,
Mm.
because the impact it had on value, on employees, on customers not seeing new products and innovation from that brand. And their brands fell behind in their categories. They didn't win. And so, I had been successful at turning around businesses, but even by the time I got to Brooks, it was even clear that, so much ownership, especially in private equity, is 3 to 5 year window. And, it's hard to create real value, in my view, especially in brands, in that short a time period. It happens if you sell it. But if you're really trying to create a franchise with the customer, and I've always viewed a brand is not an asset on your balance sheet. The brand is in the mind of your customer. It's how they think
Mm.
and feel and how much affinity they have, how much loyalty, how much trust. And that's a long game. That's just a long game. So by the time I got to Brooks, I had run 3 companies and they were all sold in that 5 year period. So by the time I got to Brooks, I just decided, you know what? I'm going to play through the next owner. I want to stay here, and I'm going to try to stay with it and look way down the field at building something that, that had good, solid foundation and trust with the customer.
It,
So
I
yeah.
love that, Jim, and it's such a great story of the long-term play, right? And you've actually gone through 4 owners of Brooks, right? That's left in your new and current owner for long term has been Berkshire Hathaway. We've got lots of questions about that. So tell us a little bit about the long-term play with 4 different owners to
Yeah.
get to where you are today.
Yeah, I think what I was ready for, because of the experiences I had, is to navigate the transition from one over to the owner to the next. And I remember when I got to Brooks, I was the 4th CEO in 2 years. There was a pool on how long I'd last, and we were private equity owned. And the employees basically said, "You're just here to sell this company. You're just here to get this thing sold for our owners." And I said, "Here's the program. They're going to sell. They have to. They've got to realize gains in the partnership that they had. But if we do this right, if we have a North Star, if we show opportunity, if we show where we can go, we're not going to attract a buyer. Businesses with issues get sold. We're going to attract an investor. And if we do this right, we're going to have so many people interested in investing in Brooks, we're going to have to hire someone to help park cars outside of our building." But I really felt that because I was ready at that point. I wanted to build brand, and I wanted to be a part of a team that did that. And we had that opportunity at Brooks, in running, because it's such a great category. But that was the key. It was really a mindset difference. And I knew I'd made the decision when I came to Brooks that I was going to play through that next owner. I didn't know it, but I'd have 3 more after that. And with Berkshire Hathaway, they don't ever sell. So we have now a permanent owner, and we feel very fortunate because it's a true advantage for us in our industry.
It really is. And let's talk about advantages because this is truly a David and Goliath story as well. And I know a lot of our listeners are really intrigued by this story and understanding what does it take to go from kind of bottom of the list to being really a front leader. You just, congratulations, crossed over 1 billion in sales. And you've really made a name for yourself in the running community and running shoes. And and became the leader. So tell us a little bit about that story, because it's really telling too of that long-term play that you've been talking about.
And so you start with your category, and there's almost always a dominant leading player in every category. Most often the case, and many times it's a platform player that just creates incredible scale and leverage in a platform basis. Our industry has that brand or two. They're based down in Oregon. So I just think that if you're not the lead player, you ought to step back and say, okay, what game are you playing? And I think the biggest choice every company makes, every brand makes, is which customer you're going to focus on. So we picked a runner, and our category includes walkers, and I call them standards. Anybody that needs a good, solid support shoe. The running shoe is just a great performance silhouette for the gym or walking or whatever. But we chose to focus on the runner, which happened to be the largest category in athletic footwear, but it left a lot of things off the table. No one had ever really done that in the athletic footwear category at the time, and it confused a lot of people, but we knew we could succeed if our product got better and better and better. And what I've learned, Melissa, is that I think you need to know your competitors really well. But I believe the riskiest path you can be on is to be similar, if not following the lead player in the category, because they're a leader for a reason. So we look for white space in the marketplace. What spaces are really not that competitive, or where could our brand develop? Where could we put products, on a whiteboard? And that positioning led us to running, performance products, and celebrating everybody's run, which is just a unique strategy and a unique focus in our category. We feel today, after 20 years with the strategy, that we're still doing something that no other brand in our space is really doing the way that we are. We're going to build a brand right in the middle of the run, the sport of run, and the lifestyle. And that's all we do. So I think niches are so powerful, because then you've got a shot to be the best at it. We have less money than so many other brands. When I came to Brooks, Nike was 153 times our size. I believe they're approaching 50 billion this year. I'm glad to be doing something different because they're really good at what they do. But what we're doing, really, again, no one else is quite doing it the way we're doing it. So everybody else is taken. Best to have a point of view as a brand, and then we're just trying to be Brooks every day and execute at that as well as we can.
Yeah, I love that. You in the book, you brought me back, and I think we're all aging ourselves a little bit, about the time where in running it became popular opinion that you should be running barefoot. And I remember those shoes where you used to have the toes. I don't know if we all loved those. I thought those were very, very strange, but I love the story of how you took that was almost a threat. You leaned into running, and then all of a sudden the running community was saying, oh no, shoes are bad, we should be running barefoot. But you leaned into a strength that you all had really talked about, and that is really following the research. And talk to us a little bit about that story. I love that story in your book.
Yeah, and many of you may have sort of seen and heard the story as it developed. There was a great book out by Christopher McDougall, Born to Run. It's a fantastic book. It's inspiring. It's really about trail running in the mountains, and it featured one of our athletes, Scott Jurek, at the time. But there was a couple chapters that basically said everybody should be running barefoot, even though most of the people weren't barefoot, some were in sandals. But everybody should be running barefoot because shoes have ruined us. The elevated heel and cushioning, and whether it's air or gel or whatever, they basically threw our entire industry under the bus. And here's the key: there was no clinical research on running and injuries and footwear that was reliable. There was research, but it wasn't definitive. So we took that and we spent 4 years in the lab. We have a biomechanics lab on the mechanics of running and as it relates to forces and footwear and injury and the like. But we hired 2 leading global researchers. I'm going to get through this faster now. And we tested hundreds of runners. And here's what we found: everybody has unique, natural, habitual joint motion, and we're all different. So there's some people that can absolutely run barefoot or in minimalist footwear, and they're really comfortable and efficient in that way. But there's other people that are going to be much happier and maybe injury-free with support because everybody's mechanics are different. So we call that run signature, and that was a foundation for us to invest with confidence in technologies that help runners stay in their habitual joint motion path. And all of our products are built around that. And by the way, it's, run bras are a piece of equipment for female runners too. And we do as much testing and lab testing, millimeters matter, fit, support. And so that's our approach to runnability and product mile after mile. Not everybody runs 26 miles, but if you do, gear really matters. And that's how we're trying to build trust in this product, mile after mile after mile.
Yeah, you bring up trust, which is something you bring up a lot in the book, and I thought that was a really interesting pivot point. Is that a lot of consumers were taking this as, hey, it was our shoes just really built there to earn dollars and money, and you went through the research of the why. Why are we building these? Why is it so unique? And you really built trust among your consumers with data and research, which I love.
Mhm.
But trust really, from a leadership standpoint too, is something that you talk a lot about in your book and how important that is. Can you kind of talk through how you've built trust, not only with your consumers, but internally and to all your key stakeholders?
Yeah, for me, I think, the currency for me as a leader is trust, and you have to earn it. It just doesn't happen with a title, especially now. And command and control leadership is interesting. But I think in most organizations, it's sort of a relic. So when I came into Brooks, the first thing I had to do, I had to earn the trust of employees, of our investors, of our banks who didn't want to lend us any money, of our retail partners, of our manufacturing partners, because there had been so much change at Brooks. So we had to put a plan together and then enlist everyone's trust and support, and ultimately opting in to the brand, the plan, our purpose of inspiring everyone to run and be active that we committed to, and be on this journey to begin to build the brand. Literally, I call it a pair of feet at a time. Runners are discerning. We have a tough customer. We've gone after the most discerning customer in running, the frequent runner, the person that's putting in 3 to 5 days a week and 20 miles plus, maybe more. They're buying a couple pairs of shoes a year. We challenged ourselves to earn the trust of that runner with our gear and function from head to toe, not just shoes. And we thought if we could do that, that's the halo to the casual runner. That's the halo to walkers. That's the halo underneath our brand. And so, yeah, trust is just foundational. I don't take it for granted. Again, the brand is in the mind of the customer. It's not an asset on our balance sheet. And we're super proud of our products, but they have so many choices. We have to earn, their trust in the next sale again. So, yeah, I think the foundation of great brands is often, over time anchored in trust.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you and I talked a little bit about too, is part of that trust is, as a leader, is also being transparent, right? And you talk a lot about that in the book, of like the future CEOs that we're talking about conscious leadership now. And what does that look like? And transparency is really key. In your book, you share a lot of personal information about what kind of got you to Brooks, in your stories of some hardships in your life,
Mhm.
also your battle with cancer, which was really, really enlightening to see you as a leader show up. So tell us a little bit about, how do you balance that, and how important is that as leaders to be transparent and real, share and be your authentic self?
Yeah, I don't know if I was born a cynic, but I was always born with questions and constantly asking questions about the situation and the people, and just trying to understand, what was going on. I think as a leader, situational awareness is critical, and self-awareness is critical, because we all have filters. And early in my career at Pillsbury, one of the executives I've learned more from than anyone else, I worked for him for 10 years at Pillsbury and Coleman, Jerry Levin. It was a large company. He was one of the top 5 executives, just managing a lot of things. And I was watching just a fire hose of activity and meetings and people and issues and fires burning and all kinds of things going on. I was just watching him and how he made decisions, how he communicated. And one time he said, I have to be completely transparent with people because I can't remember what I said to who. And if I was trying to manage a story, I'd get in deep trouble fast. And I never forgot that. So often I've told new leaders at Brooks is, look, you don't have to have all the answers, and you won't. But I think as a leader, I take responsibility for, I have to know all the questions, and I have to hold those questions and connect, with people on them and how we're thinking about them and how we're working through them. And so I think that's been powerful for me, that their confidence in leadership, and respect, and people leaning in is a thin layer, I believe, of connectedness. And so you have to earn that, but that's what we work on every day. And I don't take it for granted with our customers. I don't take it for granted with our employees. So we're constantly trying to communicate, where we're going, why we're going that way, how we're going to do it. And then when challenges come, which they do, not pretending we have the solutions, or not pretending those challenges don't exist, but talking through them with our teams. And then, when we don't have the answers, talking about the process that we're going through and how we're assessing them and what we're doing about them. So yeah, I think, we're being very transparent, and I think people have really appreciated it, especially in challenging times.
I think you are so spot on in what people are feeling and wanting from a leader, from their community leaders, and also just as humans, right? One of the things that Jim, you were talking about the last few pages, you really delved into Brooks' commitment to climate change, inclusion, and strengthening our economy by addressing income inequality. Tell us a little bit about those, and those are why Brooks has chosen those three pillars to kind of focus and work on.
Yeah, and I appreciate the question. Some people will look at those topics and say, "Wow, he's getting political," and I'm not getting political. This is the economy we live in, we operate in, and I'm 60 plus years old, and it's changed a lot, and so there's choices there. And I think ultimately, I really am hopeful that we look at some of those choices. So as it relates to people and planet, sustainability and inclusion, for us at Brooks, those are convictions. And I think convictions are belief backed by action. They're actually stronger than values. Values are how we aspire to behave and operate at our best most of the time. But these convictions at Brooks on people and planet, the inclusion and being a responsible steward of our impact on the planet as we do business. This is easy for a brand. A lot of our employees, of course, feel it's the right thing to do, but our customers care. They want to know the impact of the products that we're building on the planet. And as it relates to inclusion, I'm just going to say it's a duh. I've watched, Title IX happen in the 70s, which equalized funding for women's sports versus men's at the college level. And I watched what happened in the sporting goods world. Everybody's business doubled, because women not only became active in sport, they became lifelong fitness people and runners and active in everything. It doubled the sports category. So inclusion, it's the right thing to do. We've always viewed running as maybe one of the most inclusive sports the world has ever known, because everybody can do it. And the truth is, it includes walkers, right foot, left foot, repeat. It includes everybody. And so welcoming, communities in that haven't felt welcome before, I'll just say it's an incredible business opportunity. And for our brand that's celebrating the run and celebrating your run, each and every person, we've always, set ourselves up as inviting everyone in. Even if it's your first run around the block, we're going to cheer you on. We're going to celebrate that, versus maybe it's your 20th marathon. So for our brand, we've actually bolted them to our brand as convictions. They're not strategies and marketing initiatives and the like. We've committed to be carbon neutral by 2040, 10 years early before the Paris Accords. We've signed the climate pledge, and we're working hard at it. It's going to be a long road, but we're making progress. Our number one selling shoe, the number one shoe in our industry, the Ghost, as a running trainer, everyday trainer, is the first high volume carbon neutral shoe in the world. And we did it through a combination of recycled materials and really high quality carbon offsets. So we're making great progress there. And then on the inclusion side, we're just trying to invite and welcome everyone in. And we've got some initiatives around, if you don't see yourself in our brand, if you don't see yourself in running, that's a problem. So we're doing a variety of things to reach out to communities that haven't necessarily felt welcomed in the past, and that's not a short road. That's a long road as well. But we're on it, and we're making progress, and that's super important.
Jim, I loved it. You said this in your book too, is that it's not enough to say that we care about these things. It's really the actions that follow behind that. And it sounds like you really are leaning into that, and a great example of a conscious capitalist in action. So I appreciate you sharing a little bit more of that insight. That's really helpful. It also leads me into a conversation around your culture. And you write in your book about your 6 leadership principles, and you had 5 of them, and then you added a 6th. The ultimate advantage is a strong culture. And so tell us a little bit about your leadership principles, and how did you add that last one?
Yeah. So a lot of these books want principles. So I wrote the stories, and I think the stories there's a lot, hopefully, of takeaway value in them. But I think organizing it around some big takeaways was helpful too. So the first 4, own a niche, build a moat, solve for profitability, and vision without execution is hallucination. They're really about, how you build a business, and what you need to put together. And that's what I did for the first 10 years at Brooks. But I woke up, and to scale, it's all about people. And so lead authentically was my 5th. And then the final one I added was the ultimate advantage is a strong culture, because that's what we believe at Brooks. That's the key to us succeeding. We have a brand that's strong and getting stronger. We have fantastic products, but you can't sustain that without people. And that's really, I think what we're anchored into now. And so, we really want to, we've identified values that lead to competencies and behaviors, because culture is an interesting thing. Often a company has a strong culture, and most successful businesses do, and especially with strong brands, they have strong cultures. But you know what culture is? It's behaviors. The culture today, it's like the brand is in your mind. The culture of Brooks today is how employees feel about it today in their mind.
Yep.
And so it's behaviors and actions. So we've just gone to work. How do you scale culture? You do it through daily behaviors. And so we've done so much work on training our people leaders. We've made huge investments there to manage with heart and mind, and connect with people at where they are, in a human way. And now we're doing that in this crazy hybrid work from home environment. But we came in with a strong culture, and I think it really served us well. Our culture scores, which are really trying to measure behaviors around these values that we've identified, we had our highest culture score ever last summer when we were working in a virtual mode. And that was really a moment of pride for all of us as leaders, because we worked so hard on it. But I think, we believe that ultimately everything we express to our customers and how we compete in this category for their loyalty is going to come from our people. And so that's why we think it's the ultimate advantage. I think if we lose our culture, we're going to struggle to compete.
Jim, you're so right, and that's so hard to measure and understand. And you talk about partnering with Katie Carlson, I think that runs your global human resources, and you uncovered that you really wanted to invest in teaching your leaders to get better at leading in culture in both good times and bad times. And it's no surprise to me that your highest scores were during COVID, because you really invested in your leaders, in measuring cultural strength. Can you tell us a little bit about this training program that you guys all put together? Because I really do think this is something that a lot of organizations are trying to figure out. How do I teach culture?
Yeah, it's interesting. So our team, led by Katie Carlson, came with a leadership and management training program that was 5 full days for everyone, from me to a new manager that joined Brooks 1 month ago. And
Mm.
every leader has gone through this program. And I think the content was fantastic, and it starts there. And we had a local partner that helped us develop it. We Brooksized it, as we tend to do with everything, but it was really useful tools. It was tool set for how to manage and lead people, and solve problems, and avoid triangulation, and make decisions and run meetings. Kind of basic stuff, but it was delivered at such a high level that we all learned from it. I got refreshed by it, and
Mm.
it changed a lot of the conversations that we were having with our employees in and around performance, and connecting them in. And we're a collaborative, cross-functional company. We have about 1,200 employees. We're a small global company in our industry, so we have to stay connected, and everything we do is cross-functional.
Mhm.
So, it's just been such a great foundation for us. The biggest investment, not because of the facilitators, just the time of our top now 200 people going through 5 full days. And we're refreshing it this year with sort of our 2.0 program. That's 3 more full days this spring. So
Awesome.
it's been very deliberate, and our ROI on it has been massive.
I really do think we're at this crossroads of a lot of management has been the how to be profitable, and really paying attention to that, and somewhat ignoring how to build a strong culture. So kudos to all of you, knowing that is a key to profitability, is really focusing on that. So we have some questions coming in from the audience, and one is specific to purpose. I'm curious about how you support your 1,200 employees and tying their personal purpose to your organizational purpose.
Yeah, I think my hope is, and we have in our new employee orientation programs, we spend 3 full days on new employee orientation, and they basically meet a wide range of leaders, and we give them an overview of the business, and I speak to them first. And what I always say is, it's my absolute hope, you're joining a team. We're all a team. It's my absolute hope that you can bring your superpowers in here to make an impact for your job, the brand, the business, and your teammates. But we are a very team focused company, so hopefully that's the kind of people we attract. But we want everyone to hopefully bring their best self, not their whole self. And people have full lives, and work-life balance is such a personal challenge for everybody. We're not pretending to solve that for them, but we're hiring them because we want them to make an impact inside our team. And so that's my hope. And so their purposes may be much broader than ours, but they're joining an organization. This is a team. This is what we do, and we hope they dial into that, and through their work, they can help us, move forward in the mission and purpose that we have as a brand and a company. But we've been able to hire and attract, I think, fantastic people. It's a great team here, and it's not an accident that we're successful. We've got so many talented people.
Yeah, and you can feel and hear that in your book, and I love that so much. You're really you're really leading at the top with that too. I love you ended your book with this quote: "The secret to success is constancy of purpose," and that is very much apparent in your book, and I love that. So we are some more questions. What are the top 3 skills you are teaching during the training to help people move forward the mission of the company? That's pretty specific, but maybe you could share a couple things.
Yeah, it's hard. It is a toolbox, so to speak, and we actually do role playing through lots of different scenarios, and managing conflicts and solving problems and the like. But here's how I would describe it. When we say leading with heart and mind, I think really good leaders have a combination of things, and I captured it in sort of 3 big ideas of curiosity, trust, and focus. And
Mm.
curiosity is a key one, because what curiosity is fundamentally is that you don't have all the answers, that you're humble enough to continue to learn. You're
Mm.
humble enough to deeply listen and sort of pause and understand where someone else is coming from in an engagement, and deeply listening for understanding. And that's kind of the foundation of the program, is that, leaders, when I came into leadership, wow, I have to have all the answers. I have to have a roadmap. I have to be right. If people want to follow success, and, there's some truth in all of that. But when you're really, coaching, mentoring, leading people in a team, I would say that humbleness to keep you curious, that you don't know everything, and then knowing yourself well, so you understand your own filters. As you're listening to people, we're all filtering it through our life experiences and our sensibilities and point of view. So I think at the core of the program is just opening up and starting with an open mind to learn and understand from others. And that implies also respect, mutual respect for people, that they're on the team, so they deserve to be treated well and with respect as you're solving problems and trying to innovate and trying to be creative and everything else, right? So, but that's where I would summarize it. I think there's so much in curiosity, because it implies a humbleness that you don't know everything, and it will lead you to deeply listen to others. That's at the core of so many things, I think, in leadership and managing people.
Jim, you're speaking to so much of what you see and hear in your book as well, and that leads me to a little bit of a side question: is the ultimate man of curiosity, Warren Buffett? You have a special relationship with him, and you've really earned his trust. And so, tell us a little bit about the how is it working with Warren, and how did that come about where you were able to really earn his trust, and he saw the success of Brooks?
Yeah, you've really nailed it. He's one of the most curious people I have ever met. At 92, he's still reading books, he's still learning, he's still evolving as an investor and a business person, and I think as a human being. So yeah, it's an interesting story. I feel a little bit of destiny. I had an internship in the 80s, and it's a long story. I share it in the book, but one of the companies in that business was competing with Warren Buffett's company, and it didn't end well. Warren plays the long game, and he plays to win, and he invests in brands and businesses for the long term. So, I think he's a tough competitor in any given space. So I'd been reading his annual letters literally for 20 years. And fast forward, Brooks is bought by Fruit of the Loom. We end up getting spun out by Warren Buffett. And I had a meeting with him. He had invited me to Omaha to have a steak dinner, and I found myself in Omaha, and it was an opportunity to take him through the Brooks story. And my goal was, he's going to fall in love with this business, and I thought he would, because just the way we think about our brand, we're playing our own game. We've got a unique positioning, customer focused, and it's a great business with good returns on capital and all of that. So and he did. He basically called me about 8 months later and said, Jim, you guys are doing your own thing. You're a little bit different. We're going to spin you out and be a standalone subsidiary of Berkshire. This was in 2012. They became our fourth owner. And I said, Warren, I think that's a great idea. I'm with you. Let's do that. And we've never looked back. It's such a unique culture at Berkshire, because it really is set up as if we own Brooks. We're the stewards of this brand, this culture, the business. I'm chief risk officer. We're running it as if we owned it for the long term, and we've got their full support on that. So it's a great situation.
I love that. So, as expected, we have a lot of questions coming in for you. One question is, someone said, I have a new product that many different kinds of people are responding to, which is challenging for us to focus on an ideal audience. I'm curious, what filters did you use for ideas to ensure you remain focused on your core? And how long did it take you to develop those strong filters?
Wow, great question. And every business is different, every category is different. Running is huge. And we haven't marketed directly to walkers really in any significant way since I've been here, but we have a lot of walkers in our brand, and we love them. But we know that if we're number one in running, we're gonna be building a lot of value in our brand. So we actually created a one-page strategy in the first year when I came to Brooks to really help everyone focus. And we've been on that strategy essentially now for over 20 years. And it just brings focus to our product teams, our marketing teams, and we're small. So, our spend, many people don't know about Brooks. It's one of the reasons I wrote the book. Every penny has always been spent in talking to runners. So I think in a product side, we know our products have broad appeal, but in marketing, we've really focused our resources. And that, has created a flywheel for us. If we grow with runners, we're going to grow with the adjacencies. So that's how we've solved it. And we have an intense focus in that regard. All of our resources are focused on talking with runners, because we know if we win there, we're going to get to play another day in all of these other areas, and some of it will come with us. So that's how our category has generally worked, and the whole athletic category sort of works that way, and we're doing it in running.
Love that. So Stephen Achilles said, Jim, thanks for the great shoes. How do you measure your culture score? Do you think the measure is accurate?
It's interesting. It's not accurate, but there are trends there. So what we get out of our culture survey is just trends in areas that we have to work on, and we get silos by department and by leader. So each leader gets the scores for their team. There's 32 questions in 8 categories. And so we score it all, and we see opportunities where we're not as strong in leader accessibility or sponsorship. They don't feel sponsored. They don't feel supported by their leader as they're working on projects across the company. So we identify opportunities to get better area by area by area. So the scores themselves aren't as important. It's really about the trends, of course. And if we have super low scores in an area, we know we've got a morale problem. One of the things that comes out of our program is the number one source of morale is the manager. And so all of us as managers are responsible for the morale of our teams. And that means engagement and connection and communication and all of that. So yeah, it's we don't know that the scores are as good as they could be, but we know where we're making progress or not, and where we want to focus.
Right. Charlie is asking about your thoughts on working from the office versus working remotely, and what is Brooks doing around that?
It's a big conversation, and I think just like in barefoot running or shoes, they're both true, right? We've all learned there's such great productivity in certain areas, especially focus work. In work from home mode, you pick up the commuting and time and all of that. And at Brooks, we also know that what we've missed. I have a whiteboard in my office, and I'm a whiteboard person. And boy, have I missed that interaction and creativity as it relates to ideation, innovation, intense, complex problem solving, where you really want to do that as a team. We missed our offsites on strategy work, where we're really trying to ideate against the future, where there's no answers. It's really about building on each other's thoughts and thinking, and then accumulating ideas and synthesizing it through. These are all processes that we practiced on the product development and runner insight side. We've done a couple projects with IDEO, which is a user-driven design firm, and they have unique processes. We brought a lot of those into Brooks, and there's so much wonderful work that happens in that synthesis process, again, in problem solving and ideation. So there's benefits on both sides of it. So we're going to work the middle, which is going to be more of a hybrid process. But for us, in a team, collaborative team, connected environment, we still feel the office is going to be our center of gravity. Some positions will certainly be workable in a remote mode, but there's so much connectedness amongst our people that the center of gravity will be the office, but it's not going to be 5 days a week. We're going to be much more flexible, and we always have been, because our product people are in video and phones with our Asia teams late into the evening, so they're not 8 to 5 people. many people are working with our European teams, and they start much earlier than 8 a.m. And then we've got whole marketing teams that are running events for 5 days, expos, Boston Marathon, Houston Marathon, and the like. They're not here on Monday,
Yeah.
and they never have been. So we've always been, I think, a more flexible environment. But I'm actually optimistic we're going to work through it. But it's new muscle, habits are formed, but we're trying to work with people as we go through it. But we know we're holding, this collaborative, connected piece, because we know that's just going to be a key part of our success going forward as well.
That's great. Jim, I cannot believe our time is up. I have two quick questions for you. One is audience. Cindy Aldridge wants to know, are the pink shoes coming back?
Yes, we have lots of colors coming, and with supply chain, it's been really limited the last 6 months. But watch for Brooks in the marketplace. There's going to be more color every week, and we expect to be fully assorted by midsummer. So exciting product coming.
That's great. And if you could give one parting piece of advice in the next year or so, thinking as a conscious capitalist, what is some advice that you would give and leave us with?
And I think it's in my book. I really think that, finish lines are so important. Goals are so important. I'm probably as goal oriented as anybody, but what I've learned is that you have to enjoy the journey. You have to enjoy, not only the struggle, but the successes, and celebrate those successes along the way. We try to do that at Brooks, because there's no finish line in business and in life. We're all trying to extend the finish line as far as we can. So I think you have to find a way to enjoy and learn and be in the moment. And that not something that was evident to me in the early part of my career. But I just think it's so important. Even when you're in struggling times, you have to celebrate successes. And so we try to do that at Brooks, and I try to do that in my life. You have to soak in everything you can every day. Life's short, run long.
I love that. Run happy, enjoy the journey. Yeah, if you enjoyed this conversation as much as I did with Jim, I highly recommend picking up his book, Running with Purpose. It was such a great read. It was such an easy, fast read too, and lots of great information. So thank you so much for joining us today, Jim. It was a pleasure to be able to talk with you. And thank you everyone for joining us today. If you could please take 30 seconds to fill out the survey in the chat box, please do that. And if you're new to Conscious Capitalism, please visit our website, consciouscapitalism.org, for more information. And if you're an executive currently implementing conscious practices in your business, we invite you to join our growing community with the Senior Leader Network. We know we're going to be having some more in-depth conversation with you, Jim, with our Senior Leader Network members, and we're really looking forward to that. You can also join us tomorrow for a virtual gathering with Senior Leader Network member and CEO of Zen Business, Ross Bergdorf. So we appreciate you all for your time today. And Jim, thank you so much for making this happen. It was such a pleasure and an honor.
Thanks for having me.